Hello everyone and welcome to part 2 of working on the new OMUA vessel, the oil cleanup ship. Now finally we have a name for it, and the name is brought to you by my fellow admin of my Discord server, Sheppy05. This whole vessel was his idea actually, down to the splitting of the hulls and having the oil distillation. So because he was the one that came up with the idea, I left the naming to him, and the name of this amazing new vessel is the RSV Akimbo. If you don't know what that means, Google that word because it is relevant to what this ship does when it's opened up. Keep that in mind. So without further ado, let's continue on working on this vessel and seeing what features and things we can add. We're right where we left off, and keep in mind that the design criteria that we are looking for, sort of this feature that we want to have a distillation, is really weighing on me because I don't know the best place to put it. I've been doing some thinking, and we'll see if we can do a concept and see what ends up looking properly. So this trailer will not be here, it's just there for reference. If you can see on this side here, we're going to extract the distillation mechanism out of this because it works really well in this trailer, so I think we can make it work here. Now another sort of constraint, design constraint here, is the fact that it's twin hulled. Because it's twin hulled, that is really messing with where to keep this oil and jet fuel. So of course if we have a distillation and it's unequal streams in both of the twin hulls, or in each of the twin hulls, or in either of the twin hulls, we're going to end up with a list, and I want to keep this ship as stable as possible, so that is for sure a constraint that is also on my mind here. The perfect place for it would be where this crane is, and maybe that's what I'll have to end up doing, but I do like the crane, and it has a useful feature to sort of take out the oil that is stored in the hulls. But at the same time, because of that, it may not be necessary. Well, what kills me is the crane is good, except if we have oil coming out of it, then we want to have diesel, then jet fuel. We have to have sort of some valve system, but it's not the end of the world to have a valve system, so maybe we leave it for now, see where we can put this distillation. Also on the topic of the weighing and the center of gravity and these hinges, I did a little test here. So this one is full of diesel, and these two have no diesel. You can see zero diesel, zero diesel. This one has diesel. If I open this valve, obviously there's going to be some transfer of pressure, but that's fine. But here, if I open up this one, I do actually get diesel flowing into this and flowing into this. So it seems that we don't need those pumps. So in the previous video when I said we might have to have pumps to feed our motor, maybe we don't. Now where it comes into where it gets a little trickier is the fact ours actually ends up going up quite high. It doesn't necessarily look like that, but rather something more funky. So if we had this, let's see if the diesel will still flow upwards in this direction or not. Now there's no valve in this case, but it doesn't matter, we should get flow anyways. And we are. So that seems to be okay. We'll keep track of it on our ship with the 3 gas tanks that we have, as we discussed in the last video. Okay, back to the problem at hand. What I'm going to do is, as a starting point, I'm just going to extract the oil sort of separation chamber here so we can have a clear-cut idea of the height. Granted, there may be some wiggle room, but we know this works, so let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just put it in a upright direction, just like this. And we'll lower it down. So this is the system we have for the distillation. Just going to center it here, where we could work on it simultaneously. So with this in mind, what I'm going to do is go ahead and clean up some of this other stuff. We'll have to have a whole new system of ports and all that stuff, so that's not really what my concern is here. What my concern is to get a general shape. Even the heater I'm going to take out for now. So this is the chamber. And actually it's upside down right now. There we go. So this is where we pump in the crude. And then as it moves up, it starts to get transformed or changed into diesel in this chamber here, and jet fuel in this highest chamber here. Okay, so it is quite tricky because it's tall. Like, we could see how tall this thing is. It's not a little structure. So there has to be somewhere logical that we can put it on the ship. One of the ideas is to put it on the in the actual superstructure area of the ship, but my issue with that so far is there is no practical space for that. If we can end up with space, then maybe that's what we'll want to do, but without the space for it, it seems that it's just going to end up sort of cluttering the thing. Alright, that's fine, and then up here we have to clean out this. We'll keep doing this, but for now, at least, to get a feel for the chamber. Okay, so there's the chamber in relation to the ship. Now, a source on the internet is telling me that the diesel needs 7 blocks of height, so that's exactly what we had here, 7. But apparently for jet fuel we need 25. So if we go up 25, that puts us right here. So that does save us a little bit of height, if that is accurate, this statement that I found on the internet. So let's try that. That may actually make things a little cleaner. Yeah, I mean, it's now reduced, so if we can use some part of the hull for it, that'll help us even more moving forward. I'm going to move this trailer out of the way, it's getting kind of clunky. Okay, with the trailer off to the side and the distillation chamber over here, we now have an approximate idea of the height of it. So it's the height of the superstructure almost, or half the superstructure. So somewhere to put it where it's not going to kind of impede everything will take some thought. One thing I want to revisit is inside here. I divided off these areas for the so-called diesel and jet fuel, but now I'm rethinking that and wondering if I want to do that or if I'd rather just if I'd rather keep it such that I increase the area that does not split. Maybe the area underneath this isn't cantilevered over, but rather is solid. So let's take a look and see how that works. Also, I'm seeing there's some holes in here, which are not going to be good. Found them. They were actually from my old system that I had where I put in these blocks for the process that actually sucks in the spilled oil. So that seems to be taken care of, which is good. The only issue I see for practicality is that because I have the oil process actually running all the way back here, but we could do some sort of weird split hull thing where the bottom actually does move. See, it goes up to here, but we could have another chamber up top that stays put. So it's not like solidified that it has to stay this way. It's just an idea that I had, but realistically looking at it, we'll have to do something, and the best way is to use this area where the crane is. that sort of changes things. But whatever, this isn't a tanker, so really we don't need to have the crane. I think having the distillation is more important, or we can have a mini version of the crane somewhere on the ship, somewhere else on the ship. So let's see what can be done. I'm just going to yank it out for now. We'll take it and put it off to the side here. But yeah, the crane is a nice little feature to have, so I wouldn't want to just remove it altogether. I'd like if we could put something, like I said, even if it's a miniaturized version of it, maybe not as long, like the arm or boom not as long. And now with that done, we can actually tear this up and see what we have beneath. So I know we have some valves and some pumps. So that's all here, as well as these pumps. Right now they're not connected to anything because we removed the buttons that used to be in the old version of the ship. So I'm just going to rip everything out here. Okay. Not that wall, but all this can be taken out. And all this can be taken out. So that's going to leave us with a nice little hole here. And it opened up our hulls. Our twin hulls are now breached, which is bad. The batteries are right here. So that's where now I want to see, maybe it is worthwhile to have a little thing here where the distillation actually sits and raises up when in use, and when not in use it drops down, except it'll be a little funny, it'll be pointy, like pointing forward on this, which is a little strange. Or that thing can be placed as low as possible down into the hull. So let's see what we end up with. But right now what I want to do is fix this up, because obviously now we put a big hole in the system. So we have this battery chilling in here. Let's take the battery, for the time being, let's move it forward just so it's out of the way. Whether we decide to leave it and where, well, I want to leave it because the oil separation process requires a decent sized battery or power plant. So I don't want to just go ahead and remove the batteries. We need as much power from the batteries as possible. Okay, so this wall should be just easy to remove. There should be nothing there. And likewise up here. Where things get iffy are the microcontrollers. So I have to be careful not to accidentally remove microcontroller. In here are all the microcontrollers that run the ship. And they are placed on the expanding hulls actually. So it's not, maybe not the best place for them, but it seems to work without any problem, as long as you don't damage one of those joints and end up with a missing hull. Then you're in big trouble. Your electronics will no longer work properly, but until that point, hopefully you'd be okay. And also hopefully you won't get to a point where you destroy this equipment. Okay, down here we have our actual gas tank. Then here we have all the collection ports. So this is the very last of the collection ports right here. So this is, call it an opening or open space where we can play with the distillation chamber here. And then it would be part of the main build or the main structure, and it won't be part of the opening or expanding hulls. In that case, that might actually be preferred or ideal. So we'll see how that works. What I'm going to do is try to implement that over here. We'll drag it over and see how it looks when we place it inside this hole. How much is it sticking out? Okay, a substantial amount. But if we make it break even with the bottom of our ship, like that, on top, it's still a little tower. It's a little awkward. What would be nice if I could actually build the crane into it, where that chamber houses the top of the crane and it's sort of one massive unit. That could be actually two birds with one stone. So I'm going to paste this here and join it to our main ship. Just like that. And then we'll see what the capabilities or potential is. Of course, for aesthetics, one can have this nice and rounded out. So that's not a big deal. Just like this. And all the way to the bottom even if we want. Now down here is where now the hull bits have to be repaired, where we opened up or breached the hull. So just like this for that part. Over here we got batteries. I wonder if we close it off here, will it still want to open when I press the button to open it? But it should. I don't see why not, to be honest, because especially the pivots are on the outside edge, so they just fold outwards. So I'm gonna take and make it a black piece like this and just drag it all the way to the top of here. You can see that they're the right colors. So that's a starting point as far as this is concerned. Inside this, make sure that it is fully sealed, including the part where our microcontrollers are. Now it does look a little funky actually. I don't like that black wall at all. It's easier for me just to paint in white, visualize everything in white, and then repair it as needed. So anyways, these walls here can be brought back to this point. This here isn't doing anything. And then this part here can be closed off like that. And if we go to the top, that is what would continue all the way up. So we can continue it here, then continue this. See, just when you cut stuff like this, you just have to make sure that you're sealing it off properly in the same way as which you found it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with problems with the creation leaking water. So now it should all be sealed from what I'm seeing. I'm just going to give it a quick look over and see that it is proper. I spawn it in. Let's see what happens. We can inspect the inside of the ship. So of course this part is good, which is important. That's where the battery is. That was one of the compartments. This should be flooded, but this is diesel, so that's okay. Then over here is flooded. This is still diesel, so we're good. What is this? This is our little pump area, which is dry. So anyways, it seems that it's not flooded, and it seems that this seemed to work. Good. Yeah, let's try to put that crane over top of that distillation area, and if that's the case, then it's just a matter of this. I mean, we'll see how it looks when it opens up. It'll look a little weird, I think, but overall, especially if we round off these edges here, because this is the edge of our, or no, this isn't the edge. Once we find the edge, this, yeah, it's rounded out, so it looks okay. Yeah, it shouldn't be too ugly when it's opened up. And like I said, this part here would need a new deck and new coloring, but that's easy to do. The crane, well, forget the crane. We know the crane's gonna work. Let's see if we can make the distillation part work. Because actually inside here where the battery is, this is where we chopped off this. This back wall is also leading us to the main ship. So we had this here. But what I'm almost thinking we might want to do is give us a little more space to have the heater and such in this area. But what I'm seeing is that may not be possible from what I have here, because what we have here is a bunch of the cabling and piping for the engine fuel. So, what I'm almost thinking is that we use this platform or this area for the heater. Now I'll want to use the exact same diesel heater to make it a self-sufficient process. It's way easier that way, way nicer. We don't have to worry or battle anything else. But what I will do is have a little booster electric heater, pretty much identical process to what we did for this. So I'm gonna copy over this for now. Let's try to put it down there and see how it looks. Yeah, it's a big thing. Okay. If we eat into this, as such, we can eat into this. This is where the filter is. But this part we can eat into. And in fact should eat into, because I want to have the least amount of space for the heating up of the diesel, or the heating up of this oil. Okay, if we insert this chamber here, let's see how that could possibly look with the window there. I mean, that's not awful, especially if we embed it into this. That back wall is needed, so we have to have it right here. And that back wall is where we could run all the piping. So it's not the end of the world. It's pretty, or a fair system. It's okay. Again, not ideal. I'm not in love with it fully, but I think if we could make it practical and good, then we'll be okay. So now we have to plug in all the parts of this. First part is on the bottom. We have the diesel fuel in, and that's right in the center here in this kind of no man's land. So it actually works out quite nice that we can go around somewhere and make our way into our first diesel tank, which is right here. Now it helps to know the geometry of a ship. I always found if you're making a new ship, or if you've built it, you have a good idea of where things are in the proximity of stuff. In my opinion, it's much harder to retrofit something someone else has made, because you have no clue where on earth certain things are. Like, we could actually run this line right down all the way here, and then inside this is the chamber, and then this is the tank. So we can place a hole through here and just do that. That might be the easiest possible way. And then this is just the bottom of the ship. So when this part opens up, that's going to be exposed. And then we just run this. We'll use a pipe here. And then a closed pipe. And this. So now it's inside our main diesel tank. This does need a pump, presumably. So that can, this is actually literally inside the chamber, so we're not going to put it here. Pump. Did we use a large or small pump here? I think we used a small pump and it worked fine. Yeah. In fact, we used no pump for these tanks. The pump is... No, there's actually no pump whatsoever. So just an open system. So that might work in our case. Worth trying. Let's spawn and see what happens here. See how it sits actually first of all. I know everything just fell in the water and it's kind of funny. Let's take it out for a little spin. Because I am curious how this opens up. Or how it looks when it's open now. That's not bad actually. Like, yeah, you have this thing here, but it's not super bad, especially if we could put the crane on it too. Now if I can go down here to my distillation, it actually does have diesel, so it seems to have diesel in, which is all we needed. So good, it works. Now on the back side of this is where we have a lot of things that we have to connect to. Coolant in, air in, exhaust, and coolant out. Port for supplying air, coolant. So obviously the air doesn't have to be anything other than a simple port on the side of this tower. Just like this. I mean, hopefully there's no liquid or air filter, but hopefully water doesn't get into there. If we take a look at this system, we had it just sticking out to the bottom, so exactly the same. Here we have a series of 5 or 6 catalytic converters for the exhaust. So our exhaust is here, and if we don't want to get that like thick black smoke, we'll have to do the same for this one as well. But what I'm thinking, to prevent the catalytic converters from being too obvious or too visible, I'm actually going to try to break out. No, we can't break out there. We could break out here. So we'll come around the side, lift everything up and around the side of the front. I think this is still part of that. So we'll have to do some type of visual adjustment, something even like this, where this box gets a little more built in, and then if we have that, then this part is a walk in the park, because all we have to do is this and have our catalytic converters somewhere here. May as well put it in the center. May as well put it in the exact center and up. Just check that's the right direction. And then we'll put our 6 catalytic converters. Exhaust out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe 5 is enough, maybe not. Let's stick with 5 because it matches the top of that. And of course, like I said, we're going to make this have a bump out in itself. Also, this back panel is a good area for the controls. So it's not, there could be some beauty in the brutalness of this. Okay, down here, this has to get sealed off. Otherwise, we'll end up with a chamber that leaks. Now here's the coolant in and coolant out. That is the actual part that we're most interested in, because that's what's going to heat up our oil so we can distill it. In the other example, what we did is we had the coolant out going right into here, and the coolant in being pumped in from the same distillation chamber, in addition to also being brought in from the cold oil side. So we can do the same type of thing on our ship here. We know that the cold, or the coolant out, will go directly into this chamber, which is fine. But the coolant in is pumped in from the oil reserve. The oil reserve being the actual oil area of the ship. So now we'll have to fill up or connect this pipe to that. But it's going to be quite easy. All it is this chamber here. So once we get across to this wall, to minimize the amount of piping, and go down to here, that should be it on both sides. Just like this. Now sometimes this is better just to fill in with a pipe like that for the reason of optimization as well. So while you do have more weight this way, the blocks can render as blocks and you get the optimization from the physics flutter. Now here is our oil area. So now we just have to run this line to here. And the reason I'm running the line to here is in case we end up putting something else here. And then we turn it inwards and just put a port here. We will need a pump. And the fact that we need a pump is actually what we'll put here. I'm going to go ahead and put a big pump because honestly, I just prefer them. More flow rate. And then that's going outwards. And to there. So we're now pumping in from this chamber on both sides and going to this. When it's in this, we can pump up or pump into the main distillation area. Now, just to be on the safe side, we may not even need the big pumps because it really, we don't want to overheat or cool off the distillation tower. If we put in too much oil and it's colder, it's going to cool it off. So that may be one of those things where it honestly may have been just enough to have a simple pump, small. And if we have this, then we can have it just going like that into this distillation chamber. There's no other storage, call it, for that liquid. So it goes in directly to there. Interesting enough, I do have one. No, I don't. No, I don't. I have 2 blocks, so I can't have any more hinges. But that's okay. We could use hoses if needed. I try to avoid hoses personally because they kind of flop around and they actually ruin some of the optimization that the game has because they have to render them in a weird way, but we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. Anyway, down here, we have to get all the way to this chamber. So this chamber is where, yeah, we'll be pumping into here, into the coolant line in from both sides of the reservoir. So just like that. So the one thing that I know I have to figure out, in addition to that, up here we had it so this tank acts as our starting point and it pumps in through here into the coolant in, and additionally it pumps in from the actual distillation tank itself. So we have a I'm going to delete this, actually give us some clear work space. So this here is the coolant out. Coolant out, like I said, just goes there. The coolant in, however, comes from 2 places. So let's get a pipe that's a T-piece, just like this. And in addition to that, we'll put another pump. All right, delete this as well. Now up here is already our distillation port. So we'll have to be careful to not remove it. Quite simply, we're just going to put a simple pivot like that and put a port. That's the nice thing with ports. They fit in spaces like that, very tight. Perfect. So now we are taking into the pump. It's the wrong direction. Nope, taking in this side into the pump. Oh, we could have even done that. Taking it into the pump and putting it into the coolant in, as well as taking it from the areas where we store oil. So we could even just use the deck, to be honest. Just like that. Hopefully we didn't delete any lights inside, but I don't think so. Nope. Okay, and then this is quite simply this with a T-piece. And these ones just go out all the way and down to where they connect, like that. So that actually brings the oil from our reservoirs into here, which is actually really nice. So we're not storing any oil in this chamber, we're just literally pumping it in and circulating it through here. We could also add a additional step here, and the step would pretty much entail removing this and putting that. I always forget that, but anyways, pump in. So it pumps it into here, and instead of the system that we were using, we do this, but instead we add an additional step, and that is the electric heater or furnace. So we put that in here, and all it needs is an inline and an outline. So maybe it's better to have it running inside this wall. Like that. And then it pops out. And we go up. And we'll need a pump somewhere, so the pump can actually go here. And then directly into the heater or furnace. There we go. And that is coolant in, so that was actually the wrong position. Coolant out. Okay, so there we have it. Now we've added a furnace, so it's being pumped in already through that. I wonder if we could pump through this without turning on the furnace. Presumably yes. Presumably we just pipe it through. So that's everything we need in here. We could even close this off. And now it's sealed. Almost. And now it's sealed. And this part just gets covered. And then on that part here is where I want to put my control panel or my interface. So we'll see how that works. But for now, I'm just going to make it a simple thing like this. And then we'll see how exactly the interface gets put onto it. But realistically, that is all the parts of the oil distillation process that we need. So I'd like to give it a shot before we proceed with the other parts, which would include actually making this crane setup and all that other interesting stuff. So I'm going to start by extracting this system or this setup because I like how it looks, and put it on our ship. So the keys are on the left hand side, that's good. Alright. Now these systems are all activated by controllers that are on the trailer, but in essence the first one is fill the distillation chamber. This one is enable the process, and this is the electric boost heater. We also have on this side the oil temperature, furnace temperature, distillation oil level, so the actual distilled oil level. And that's what we're pumping into here. So inside this chamber, we have to have a few things. We have to have a fluid meter. Gotta have a temperature probe. And that's a starting point. So right now the distillation oil level is here. I always like personally to put these things on the outside wall so I could actually use them while I'm hovering over the creation to see manually. So right there. Connect that one. Furnace temperature is the temperature of the furnace, and then distillation oil temperature is what the probe reads. So that's all easy and good. Now for these keys, also we have to plug in all of the new pumps to the electricity. So that's down here. We have our new electricity there, and we have this heater and this heater, this pump and this pump, and then up in here we have this pump, and I guess all of these keys and all of this can be attached just like that. Alright, so now with that attached, we can determine what we need. So to fill the distillation chamber, we need to have this pump on, and we need to have this pump on. Okay, that actually fills our distillation chamber. Now the chamber itself is full, or let's say it's full, and then you enable the process, which means turn on the heater. So that's this. Now this optional button is our electric furnaces, so we'll plug those in as well. And that should be it for now. That'll give us an idea of what's happening as far as the process goes there. Actually, one thing I didn't like is this optional isn't really optional. I would say that the electric heaters should be on when we're filling this. So that is a two-step process. As long as we're filling the distillation chamber, these heaters are on. The optional would come in if we have another heater somewhere inside this, potentially down lower where we have space right here. So now this would be our additional heater or additional spot, and you can see we don't want it to be touching. How much space do we actually have, and what is this? Huh, I see. This is in here. So it always pays to know, again, the nooks and crannies of your creation. This should be, oops, sealed off, but it's not. So that's the furnace. So we actually have to seal this off like that. Okay, and now we have some space to put the electric heater, hopefully. No, it's touching it again. We can't have it touching like that. So that's a no-no. Up here it's okay. Can't really move. Well, this is in a fixed spot right now, so I don't want to move it. And then up there is where we get to this one. Oh no, also that's interesting. This doesn't actually work because this is a sealed compartment. That's a good catch. So I actually have to have something like this that passes it. Now it's open. So that's enough to open it up to get below. Perfect. Now we have to do the same for the one up here, which is actually going to be a little trickier. Not a lot trickier, but a little trickier because it exists up here. What I'm going to have to do is move my series of catalytic converters a little bit, and then pretty much rely on this area to get around it. Now down here is this part, so that's not ideal. There's no way around it on this bit. So then if we can't go there, we have to go to the width. I guess also maybe I solve a lot of problems if I just push this out by one block like that. Yeah, it'll be a little harder to reach with these, with this, so I may have to rework that system for the railings. But it may be a better system because then, first of all, we can hopefully have the electric heater here, which will be an added bonus. Put it right here, and we'll need to have a port on the bottom and on the top. Well, not just the port, we have to have more than a port, we have to have a pump. So coolant out, that's fine. On the top bit, it's not as simple as that. On the top bit, we have to put yeah, so that doesn't, well, no, it could work. You could have something like this, pumping it out to here, and then do we have space? We do have space for a pump, assuming I move this to the other side. So that'll go up, and we put a pump on it. And this is in, and then it is out on the other side of the furnace. However, this may have opened up the same issue as before, where we have to have kind of a line going through to the bottom to this chamber, but that might work as long as it's the same creation. So we're just running these little vents everywhere. I'm going to call them vents because they transport the liquid, or transport, yeah. And I'm gonna do this and open it like that. Okay, so as long as we don't delete that one on the bottom, that system is open and good to go. So if I start off in the bottom of the chamber here, I have to be able to find my way all the way to the top. So here we're going, through here, and this is where we stop, because this is where we have that bit of a disconnect. And right here is the filtration unit. So this little bit didn't actually help us it helped us for the electric furnace. It didn't help us for this particular part. Now, yeah, you could also, what I could do even, maybe that's kind of the gimmick or the trick right now, because I could just connect it with Windows because this here would get moved. So all this stuff on the back of the furnace would get moved. To here. And then this would just go here. Not everything should get moved, so some things we'll have to fix a little bit there, but like this we'll have to connect. This here has a disconnect, so it comes out there and it goes around the side and wraps itself down. Okay, so that's okay now. This air filter, that's okay now. So this portion here would just have to get revised. And I'm gonna go down all the way to here so we don't accidentally delete it moving forward. All right, so that should work. And like I said, we put a window here. Okay, make sure this is sealed up. We'll take a narrow piece of glass like this and put it just like that. So in theory, that'll allow the liquid to the top. And it also kind of looks like we did it on purpose. So now, let's reconnect this new furnace to the procedure here, or to the breaker, and we'll then turn that one on to be the optional. So that one's optional, these two are not optional. This one here is, I mean, we shouldn't be, we'll see how the heating works, but also we do have a generator, so maybe we'll have enough power for all these heaters and furnaces. Enable distillation process, that's fine, that turns that one on. So that should hopefully be everything that we've added as far as the distillation process is concerned. Now what is not there is this. So once you've distilled these things, what happens? Right now, nothing. So yeah, you can turn on the distillation process, but you won't even be doing anything until that's set. So I think first of all I have to actually set this to my new one there. That one's all good. These are all set, the buttons are good. This is not sealed off, and this is not sealed off, so we'll close that. Okay, but in theory now it's ready to collect oil inside the distillation tank. And what we do with it, like this is our jet fuel. The diesel one will actually be easier because we could pump the diesel or put the diesel right back into this. This is our tank. So it doesn't have to, in fact, this line here that feeds this stuff, that feeds the actual heater, we could plug it right into here with a T-pipe. So that's all oil or diesel, and it can just go directly from there to there. Done. So that's one part, but the jet fuel is a little more complex. Also, the issue with what I just did now is you won't actually know you're producing any diesel. You just have to kind of have blind faith. So yeah, you could turn around, I guess, and if the diesel here on this dial increases, then you are adding to it. So I guess that's fine too. We could also put a little thing here, or put a fluid valve or a fluid meter that tells us if we're producing it or not. Anyways, jet fuel here, it's gonna have to go somewhere else. Now, because we have this kind of crazy array of piping all over the place, we'll have to find a suitable location for it to pass through here. What is this? That's a regular one. That's a regular one. Okay, we've kind of broken through here, so it could attach itself to the main area there, and I will have to actually have a tank for the diesel regardless. So that's going to be another challenge as far as the design goes, because right now the generator that we've set up is not only not connected, it doesn't even have any diesel for it. But let's see what this does. We could bump out there and there. Alright, this is just piping 101. But anyways, we plug into it here, plug this in down there, and just make sure that we have all this attached properly. See, we have to go down here. It's less than ideal, to be honest, but it is what it is. Like, we're just setting it up so we can get the jet fuel to the tank. But that should work. Like, that does seem to be passing in the right direction, hopefully. As far as the jet fuel tank, so this is where the fuel goes. Underneath here is the rear ballast tank. So we can't really put it here, but what I could do is eat up some of the space of the ballast tank, because what right here is the diesel. Yeah, let's just do that. That may actually be a clever solution. We'll just eat into this, make ourselves a jet fuel area here, fed to our generator. So right down here. Yeah, that could be clean. And then just down here is where the jet fuel accumulates. So the idea is that the distillation chamber utilizes the existing tanks rather than storing them in, call it, brand new ones. Like, this is an existing tank, and yeah, I could maybe move this in and make it a little smaller or make this a little bigger, but for now this is okay. Let's add these ones here to this new chamber right there, and obviously set it to jet fuel. So that's set to jet fuel. That's all good. See, even saving little space with ports like this technically gets you more capacity by a little bit, but better than nothing. Anyway, this is okay now. This is okay now. We don't have this continuing all the way to our new diesel or jet fuel tank. So that's, I guess, the next step is to go down and across. This is nothingness. So we have to, oh, and here is this. We just deleted something. I guess we could come through here. Or come through here. And straight down. And then we have to enter this area. And keep going straight until we hit this tank here. So this is where I'm just going to put one of these. And we'll kind of start from the backwards area. Or start from backwards and go forwards. So this is the piping for the engine. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this. So the piping is done. Now it's connected to the tank here, or connected to the place where the jet fuel is created. Because we're running right below this, I almost think that it would be worthwhile. See, we're running right next to the gas line. Oh my. Where does that go, actually? Just have to make sure we didn't breach something, because this doesn't look right. Yeah, this doesn't look right. This one just stops there, but does this one? No. Yeah, so something got disconnected here. Luckily, it's an easy fix. It's just that this here got disconnected when I added this line. Now it should be properly working, except now here we have our jet fuel. So like I said, what I was just about to say is it'll be nice if I can make my jet fuel right here and then maybe move the electrical to the other side, since electrical is very easy to move and adjust. And that may just be the optimal solution. Oh shoot, except for we're gonna have a little bump out here, a little ledge, which I'm not a fan of. If we were gonna copy this and have the jet fuel area here like that, we'd need to have a pipe running down this wall. And I try to make my creations clean and not kind of random bumps and lumps and stuff like that, but unfortunately some things are less avoidable. And yeah, I think the solution is to put the jet fuel on the other side where I just put the electrical now, because if it goes there, then we have wall that we can actually place it onto, hopefully. See? Right there. And then this can go across even if we want, as long as we're not deleting lights. Whoop, deleted a light. So we got to be careful with that. But probably if I go straight out here and outside, now we're not deleting any lights. Down here there's no lights, there's just hallway, and I can join it in somewhere there. Like this. So we put a T-piece pipe right here. And then this is where we're going to fill up our jet fuel if we want to externally fill it up, or otherwise externally pump it out, maybe. Maybe not with a pump. I'll see if I'm going to actually put a pump system, or if I'm just going to make it, call it a dumb hose system where you have to bring your own pump. But regardless, that's a much cleaner solution than the one originally here. You can see now that is our jet fuel. I will change the symbol and the sign. Okay, but that will get us an idea of what we're up against and what we have as far as the distillation process. Just going to plug in this to the meter so we could see what we have. And the jet fuel has to, the jet diesel, or the jet, wow, the jet generator, it's a mouthful, has to get adjusted and made to work. But regardless, this should be working, so let's give it a test. So I've installed the jet powered generator. This is the button. We'll see if I change it, but for now this is where it is. So that's there. I could hear it on. Now it's not really charging the battery just yet, but it could be because it's still powering up. Did I put a clutch? I did not. The throttle is very low. So something's to do with my microcontroller. It is something to do with the microcontroller down here, because this microcontroller is for helicopters. So we need the throttle to be not what I set it, but rather, so regular mode throttle 1, 0. So when you turn the engines on, that happens. Air intake. Now the air intake is a variable, but we may want to avoid it and just set this directly to there, because of course we're not the generator is not outside, so the it may not end up getting any pressure through there. So I'm just going to turn this on. Anyways, down here we can fill our distillation chamber. Of course we don't have any oil, so we can't really fill it, but we see we have some jet fuel. Now we can turn this on, I guess, see if the heater heats up. Diesel levels reading 0, so something's happening here. We may have to put a pump after all, or something that we did messed it up when we moved things around. Yeah, of course, remember when we moved the thing, I didn't move the location of this, so it was not actually plugged into the diesel. Whereas now, just to make sure that I'm selecting the right body, whereas now we can select this and have it be connected just like that. So that should work, but let's get some oil in here so we can actually see how things work. Actually, it's not yet ready for that because here I plugged in some random things, but I wanted to extract the microcontroller that I actually developed for the distillation chamber, specifically the cutoff for the chamber, because the idea is that if the temperature starts to drop because we're pumping in too much stuff, this is where this microcontroller really comes into play. So I'm just going to put it up here for now. Really what we have is the button, fill chamber button. So that's to actually fill the chamber. I believe that's this one here. So fill chamber. And then we have the pumps. So we have this pump, and we have these heaters. So everything turns on with this. There's no reason to run the heaters if we're not using the pumps, and vice versa. And that goes there, so we've plugged that in. And then the rest of it is the fluid meter in the distillation chamber, the capacity, and the temperature. It's all down there. So we have the temperature probe, we have here the capacity, and here we have the liquid level. So now that microcontroller is working, this trailer can actually be removed. We're no longer needing it. Okay, so I've spilled some oil, or lots of it, and let's see now how this ship works. So we could open up the ship, but we even don't have to. Really, all we need to do is activate the seawater pumps and turn this up. So let's turn this up. Let's open up the pumps. So here we are. The value is starting to increase. So now we are actually pumping in oil from the oil spill. If we go down here into our little chamber, you'll actually see that the oil is increasing. But we also, well, we didn't get any seawater actually. Okay, a little bit. So this is increasing. So now this part works properly. We're happy with that. Obviously we have to fire up our generators because this is not enough juice for that massive, for two massive centrifugal separators. Also our jet generator, let's see if that helps us. But regardless, this is increasing, so that's one part of the process. We could even turn this on, whatever, we'll see what happens. Anyways, this is running at full capacity. We now have oil in our system. So we can go down here, and now we should be able to pump in oil into this. So let's fill this chamber up. And unfortunately there may be some water here too, but we got oil. And it should be heating up because we should be running that heater in here, or outside here. I see, this is actually a mistake. That should not be open, but anyways, this is turned on. Okay, so let's try to enable the distillation. And we'll even turn this on. Let's just turn everything on. our engines are struggling to turn on actually, so I have to look into what's happening here. That button cured it, but until then it kept not wanting to turn on, so I don't know what's going on. Just something to take a look at for me. But here we have it, the furnace temperature is heating up. Let's try to drive the ship now. I'm curious what's going to happen. Kind of want to open it up. So that's going to happen, but it will clear it. There we go. My battery is still... Oh, we're actually charging. So with everything going on now, we're charging finally. So that's at least something. We're still pumping into these tanks. This here has reached a good temperature. This has not yet reached a good temperature. It's still charging up. I'm just curious if we're going to start to see this increase and this increase. That's really my curiosity, because if we get that increasing, that means our process worked. We're almost there. Let's see. Okay, we've reached 300. Now this is good. We've reached 300. And let's see in here. We're getting some diesel and jet fuel separation, but is this increasing? No, this is still decreasing. This is still decreasing. Now maybe the fact that we have seawater in here is impeding this distillation process. You can see the number, the value of the diesel and jet fuel is not really going up. It's going up very slowly, so something, and also our liquid level keeps increasing. Oh, because I keep pumping it. Let's turn that off. So what I'm guessing is it's not really working properly because of the seawater here, but we are getting separation and we are able to have the furnace at a very high level here. So we're happy with the temperature that we find. So really now it's just a matter of the diesel and jet fuel actually separating and not just kind of doing this. Maybe I should put a valve to stop it. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Now we're increasing. We're increasing here too. We did it. We did it. So yeah, there is some water in here. Unfortunate. That water should evaporate, to be honest. We're heating this up so high that that should just leave. But we've gone ahead and separated it. So even though we put some water in the system, we ended up able to distill on our ship. I'd say that's a huge success. Look at that. One thing that I have to add as well is the ability to pump this out afterwards. Say you're done and say now there's some seawater collected in this chamber. We have to be able to pump it out somehow. So that is something too that I have to consider. But for now, I'm actually super stoked. This ended up working way better than anticipated. Look at that. We are collecting oil and we are distilling oil. These things are still collecting. You can see the values increasing. We can even see, well, we can't see anything in here, but not bad at all for a day's work. So anyways, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, part 2 of working on this OMUA oil collection vessel. Some interesting tidbits of information were given and the process was kind of explored. So thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more content, more creations, and as always everyone, happy Stormworksing.